In 3, 2, 1, we are now live.
All right. Well, good day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Amy Darathick, Vice President of Curriculum and Content here at Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here today with our panel of educators and to share some tips and tricks and best practices and what's worked and what hasn't. So I am absolutely thrilled. I want to take a couple seconds to introduce the group and to welcome everybody who's joining us to our YouTube live broadcast of outstanding educators to discuss how they've managed their planning during this digital transformation. So I'm going to start with Gauri, who has a wealth of knowledge around kindergarten starters, was instrumental in that. She's a director of curriculum and a coach for teachers. It does a ton of action research in order to guide instructional practices. So Gauri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay.
Rhonda, I'm so interested in you sharing with our audience today as a former science teacher, a head of department, and now the VP of Beacon House Group. I think you bring a lot of experience. I know that you were instrumental in science implementations and driving best practices for teachers. So I really can't wait to hear from you as we kick this conversation off.
Thank you.
My fellow Ohioan, Michelle, is joining us today as a consultant at Ascend Education. She has worked many years to drive curriculum work within school districts as a curriculum consultant. And what a small world it is that I hop on to host a panel and Michelle and I live about 20 minutes from each other. So it's a pleasure to see you, Michelle. Thank you for joining us. And Kitab, thank you so much for being here. It's so easy for those of us that move into leader roles to forget what it's like in the classroom, to forget what Main Street's like with all of our students day in and day out. And I know that there has been so many challenges with the time during the pandemic, and I'm really excited for you to share with us Main Street and what that really looks like for you. So thank you everybody for joining us, and let's go ahead and get started with our first question. So how much has school changed in the past year? And more importantly, what do you predict is going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months? So let me start with Michelle. And Michelle, if you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be great. And then you can pass it off to the next person.
I will. And Khatab, I'm going to pass it off to you next. So from our experience, we work with teachers in the Middle East and Canada and the US during all this. And my own personal daughter is a teacher too. So the answer, it's changed so much. Here we are still on such flexible schedules that you can say, great, we're going to be completely in person on Wednesday, and then by Friday you're out of school already. So I think what has changed for teachers so much is the need to be even more flexible. And we all gave credit to teachers all along for their ability to quickly change on a dime. But now they are learning. They're learning Zoom and they're learning whatever platform, as well as the technology to get the kids interested in their curriculums, in what they're doing. And they're learning to change their own teaching methods by going to webinars and by learning from each other. People are sharing across the continents. And I think that too, what is going to stay, maybe not the drastic curriculum change that as curriculum people we would have hoped, but maybe more of the things that are really important, those essential understandings, the social needs of students, the things that are really hands-on, especially in things like science and politics right now.
Yep.
All right, I'm passing it along.
All right.
Khattab.
Well, to begin with, there's a saying that I always tell my student to follow. Don't go with the flow, be the flow. Right here in today's world, we're changing to technology, more use of technology. And I think it's about time because, well, technology has been raising since, a decade, and we're not actually manifesting with this. But the students, especially when we're talking about Generation Z, what we're teaching today, they're more of, technology best students we ever had. So the idea here that this revolution with the pandemic that we encountered, COVID-19, forced the teachers to deal with this, and as well the students loved the idea of having online classes, and of course there are a few challenges. But in my own statistics, I made a research here in Jordan, and the idea is that 94% of the students prefer that they use technology, solving their homeworks, seeing YouTube videos. But the idea is that the teachers, 64%, they said that they use technology. Well, after the pandemic, it's raised to 90%, which is very good. And I believe that this change is driving us to more use of technology, and talking about curricula, talking about how the students actually comprehend the lesson itself. Passing on to someone else.
Yes. I will jump in here. Thanks a lot, Michelle and Khattab. And I really second you here, guys. And I believe that the changes that happened are extremely massive. I will compare our schools 1 year back, just before the pandemic, and currently we were at the first stages of technology integration. Even as leaders, we were thinking about how to integrate the technology in 3 to 5 years plan. However, due to this pandemic, we've been put in a situation where there is no choice except diving into this as soon as possible. We started previously, for instance, we only had like a smart boards. We had at a certain point computer labs where students, they're using it from time to time. However, due to the pandemic, BYOD became, bring your own devices, became a major technique, personalized devices with every single child, using the platforms, moving to this digital approaches. The instructional approaches in total have been changed dramatically. Where are we going in the future? It is also a little bit hard to predict, but let's hope with the vaccine, we will be able at a certain point to come back to the normal, the new normal. We're still expecting the students to go back to the face-to-face. However, the technology is no more a choice. Whatever we carried during this era, during this paradigm shift, it will remain and it will stay with us after this point. It's going to be really hard to step back and stop using all of these beautiful approaches, which helped in the instruction in a way or another. But I would say there is something important. We as educators or parents, we need to really look into very carefully, which is the balance. We need to learn after this period of time, after all these things that we had lived together, that the balance is important. Parents, they learned that, okay, staying in front of these screens for a long period of time, definitely it's not the best thing for their kids. We still believe the importance of the social integration, emotional intelligence, and all of these things that we need to maintain in our students. And as a human being, that's also a major thing that we need to take in consideration.
Absolutely. So let me pause here for 1 second. Anybody who's joining us on our live stream, please feel welcome to type into the chat around, what do you think the next 12 to 18 months are going to look like? And as we move forward with this, Rory, I'm going to turn the question a little bit as we move forward here. So the next 12 to 18 months, how can we ensure that our students are actually learning? So from a curriculum and content perspective, how am I making sure that the kids are meeting the standards and benchmarks and that we're actually being successful versus just checking a box? So I'm going to start with you, Gary.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Amy, for the question. I think in terms of curriculum completion or curriculum setting the targets for the students, I think there has to be some flexibility given in there as well. Because what is happening is if the school is benchmarking that these are the requirements that need to be completed, I don't think so that any school is able to complete the set standards for the students. So I think number one, there has to be flexibility in terms of how much content needs to be covered and what are the important topics and concepts the students need to know. I think focus should be on that first instead of completing a whole lot curriculum and then again assessing them on something which is not very important. So I think one is the curriculum adaptation. I would feel, I would say, in terms of keeping in mind the needs of all the learners, including the SEND students as well. So I think that is number one that we need to take care of. And in terms of, again, I think coaching teachers and regular observations and giving them effective feedback, the online observation that we normally do. So I think those need to be more rigorous in terms of having more observations and giving a critical feedback or giving an effective feedback to the teachers. I think that is going to be that will help the teachers, I think, in improving their practices as well. So
Right.
I think that is something, yeah.
When you say flexibility in your curriculum, you need flexibility in your curriculum. Can you be a little bit more specific? What does that mean, flexibility in your curriculum? Because I think it's different today than it was, a year ago.
Right. So just an example, like when the place where I was working in my previous school. So when this happened suddenly, when there was a sudden shift in the implementation of the curriculum, the school actually had to devise a strategy where we have to focus on only the important aspects of the curriculum. And it may not be that I deliver everything, because what was happening was, because the teachers have the mindset that this has to be completed because it is in the written curriculum. So that change had to be made, like where we need to come up with a plan that, okay, these are the important concepts which we feel, like for example, we have to look at the international curricula or look at the important concepts which need to be covered for the child to go from one grade to the other. So the school management had to decide that, okay, these are the important topics, and the other topics can be either we make it a blended learning, or whether we make it like a self-study. For example, in older classes, we make it a self-study for them, so that they just have to go through but may not be assessed. So only the concepts that has taught in the class, we teach them really well, and then those need to be assessed and graded. So I think the flexibility in terms of every schooling or every management is important, I feel.
Right. Kitab, so when you're in your classroom teaching and we're talking about actual ensuring that there's actual student learning, tell me what tools or resources or skills that you have to employ to be able to do that. Talk to me a little bit about how you're assessing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for that question, Amy. Actually, the idea when we talk about internet and the use of technology, 21st century skills, we all know it, the 4 C's or the 5 C's, the 5 D's, those are the specific things that you need actually to assess your student with. And if your students actually came up with very good background of these skills, that's the goal. I mean, eventually what we really seek, the teachers, is to enable our students to go to a college, get a very nice career that they actually like, and be creative at it. And one of the things that creativity or critical thinking and all of these skills, there are a lot of tools online that you can actually assess your students with, and project-based learning, all of these tools you can actually do to assess your students. Eventually, what I really want to emphasize here, that the idea of the psychology of the students, when you try to try to set up a goal for that student. Each student has his own or her own objective in life, and you need to walk through this objective in the assessment in order to make that student well addressed in the future.
Right, right. And so one of the things that we've been hearing a lot in chats and in conversations is around formative assessment in a digital environment, right?
Yes, indeed.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know if anyone else on this call is and on this live is thinking this, but for
Yes.
teachers that are young and are digital natives themselves, there is a different set of challenges in formatively assessing students than there is for teachers. Like, I didn't grow up that way. When I started teaching, I opened the file drawer and I pulled out the folder that said World War II, and I opened it up, and year after year I had this content that I taught, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about making sure that all our students are actually learning, we also have to talk about how all of our teachers are empowered to teach in this environment. So I think it becomes, not only are we as school leaders differentiating for our students, but we're differentiating for our teachers, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
so as Kitab was talking, I thought, he's young, and I imagine that his transition to teaching digitally is a little bit different than maybe it would have been for me, right? And
Right.
so let's take a second, and Rania and Michelle, if you want to share with us how you're meeting those needs of individual teachers, and like, what is a skill that if people are listening to us and they're saying, I'm young, that wasn't that hard, or I'm not, I'm struggling with that, what are the tips that you might share with them to help them move forward in this environment?
Yeah. Michelle, would you like to start, or I can?
Okay.
Okay. So I believe that a crucial thing here is learning from each other. And I totally believe in apprenticeship and peer observation, sharing best practices. We definitely might have that teacher who is a novice teacher, I would call, that's not really very experienced when it comes to technology. And there's always a say that we teach the way that we have been taught. And many of us, we've never been in such a approach of learning, and we did not teach, or we have not been taught the way that we are teaching currently. So the professional development, continuous professional development is something crucial. Dealing with, like, observing each other classes, sharing these best practices, even among the schools, not only in the same school, but between other schools. And I would say in UAE, we're kind of lucky. We've been exposed to many massive number of professional development opportunities, either from the governmental bodies or in-house, I would say, through our own more, let's say, experienced colleagues who were able to teach these teachers these new practices. I would love, though, to just very quickly also to comment on the previous learning subject, when we talked about to what extent our students as well are learning in this process. And this have been a challenge for us, even as leaders. I observe classes, I come to see that teaching is happening because I can see my teacher explaining, I see her PowerPoint and so on. But the biggest challenge was always to what extent my students are learning from the other side. And I will here reinforce on the importance of the formative assessment techniques, that they are the right way currently in order to assess our students. So we need to teach our teachers how to ask for a feedback from these students. We need to teach them how to ask the right question to make sure that these students are understanding the concept. Luckily, even lately, I've seen some of my teachers, they're using beautiful platforms, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but that was for me an aha moment. A couple of days before, they shared with me this whiteboard app, which allows every student to write his answer on a personalized screen, where the teacher can see all of these screens in front of her and give the immediate on the spot feedback to the student. So these good practices are good, and we need to share them. Like immediately we tried to share it on with other teachers in order to learn from each other, so the best practices can be consistent among the other classes.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm sure everybody that's listening thanks you for the whiteboard app, so that they can all go check that out immediately and have a look at that. Thank you for that. Michelle, what do you think about that? How are you differentiating and teaching people to differentiate, not only for their teachers, but for their students?
And back to your original thought that digital natives approach this differently. And digital natives don't have to be the young people. In a UAE school, the drama teacher has always loved technology. And early on in the pandemic, maybe April, she had all of her students writing plays and performing pieces, and then she put them together, and the kids all worked together in their chat rooms, and it came to be a seamless play. So I think that what we're focusing on is how to make what you're doing able to be still a group endeavor, as well as having that individual part of the assessment. One of the functions of schools everywhere is to bring students together, to learn from each other, to create that learning community, a 21st century skill that's going to go into businesses. So when we see chemistry teachers putting out their make the best soft-boiled egg possible and explain the chemistry behind it, and then all the kids coming together and sharing. Same thing with what Rania mentioned, teachers learning from each other. In Pennsylvania this summer, they spent the entire summer having teachers teach each other some of the platforms, some of the different ways to use technology to assess. And a shout out to technology and publishing companies that have been quickly transitioning and saying, hey, now our textbook is online, as well as all of these videos that you can get, or quizzes and things. So if you're a teacher who is not a techno native, your textbook company probably provides you a lot with that, and the people down the hall also know a lot.
Yeah, you guys have all talked about the importance of professional learning communities, that not only are we creating communities for our students, but we're also creating those communities for our teachers, right? How many of you missed the day where you went in the morning and you would see all the teachers that you work with? I mean, I really enjoyed the community of my school. So I want to kind of want to move this a little bit and talk about what effective digital tools have you found? What have you found? You shared with us the whiteboard app. What other digital tools and resources have we found that have been really effective? And Gloria, if you have something you'd like to share, just hop in, guys. Let me know what you're thinking and what you found.
I think a major challenge which our school had actually faced was dealing with the younger ones, the kindergartners.
Okay.
Because it was a lot of the parents were not willing. I mean, of course, they will not send the children to school, but they were not very happy with the way it was going as well. So we actually introduced the Seesaw app, which was very, very friendly. We did a lot of experiment with all the other tools that we were already using. But still, it was very difficult for, like, we were using Class Dojo, where the teacher used to record a video and then take feedback. But then again, like the parents were not getting that satisfaction as to it's not very big, it's not effective. So the teacher feedback was also on and off. So we introduced the Seesaw app, which was very, very child friendly, and you could actually see the students logging in on their own and coming on Zoom whenever they are asked to do so, or coming on Teams. So we changed from Zoom to Teams later on. So during I think in another 4 to 5 months, after September, I think the students were very, very comfortable with using the Seesaw app, as well as the parents liked the app, which was more important. So they used to upload the work immediately done by the student. So the feedback was also very immediate. So even in my child's school, they're using the Seesaw app, So I think it's very, very child-friendly app as well as a teacher-friendly app for the kindergartners. I think that was a very effective tool that we used.
Great, great. Who else? What else other resources have you found that have worked well for you?
There's another beautiful app my math teachers, they're also using. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's called Nearpod. And this Nearpod, it allows these students to do their mental math together at the same time, and it allows even it's self-correcting app, so it gives all of the data, their scores on the screen, so they can even monitor each other's scores while they're doing the assessment. That was very interactive, to be honest, and the kids they loved that. In addition to the breakout rooms through Zoom, where you allow the kids to differentiate by allowing them to work in groups and separate rooms together, where the differentiation can happen virtually. That was maybe like speaking about differentiation. Many teachers, they believe that, okay, they're teaching one size fit all doesn't really do, or it won't do the job at a certain point. So we figured out these breaking out rooms where we allow the kids to move to separate room as groups together to work on differentiated tasks as well.
I have some ideas as well. Not only, and I agree with Seesaw and Nearpod, not the Nearpod, and some assessment tools like Kahoot, of course, but the content providers are also making podcasts and videos. So Varsity Tutors does a series of learning for different age groups, Physics Classroom, as well as Discovery Education, and I just found out that I'm doing a lot of science things, but what I'm trying to get is not just education and assessment tools, but also podcasts are cool for kids, and Learning Alive, the PBS station, has all sorts of programs and broadcasts. So teachers are now embedding those and having the backwards flipping kind of classroom that we've always said, hey kids, watch this with your group, talk about it, and then come to class, and then we will do an experiment based on what you think was interesting in that.
Absolutely.
If I jump, Amy, concerning the tools and the what the others, Rania and the others just said, the question that we actually need to direct is the goal of the tools that we're actually giving to our students is to give them passion in what we're doing and in the curricula that we're teaching. So the tools, I mean, if you just, you're teaching, let's say, drama or science or any other subject, you just Google the subject that you're actually teaching, and you'll find a million of resources that you can actually use. And the kids, they love to dig the internet behind you and see what's going on. So if you just send a home experiment, for example, and you'll just video the experiment for me, they'll just send you the links and they'll be happy to share their ideas with you. Concerning the drama, how about you do this act inside your house along with your parents and share your ideas with me. So concerning the tools, I believe the internet and the technology allowed the teachers to get millions of resources they can actually share with their students individually. I mean, that students actually would love to, he's visual students, he loves to see videos. I'll send him this video or her this video. While the other one, if he's more practical, I'll do this for it. So it gave us a lot of choices. It gave us a lot of options.
If I could, can I just check in on sorry, Michelle, can I just check in on some of the comments that are coming here on the channel?
Absolutely.
We've got a good viewing audience, so thank you to everyone who's joining us live via the YouTube channel as well. And we've got wonderful comments about the positive nature in adapting the standards, which Gauri spoke about earlier on. digging into how is that managed, who manages that, etc. So there's some questions around that as well. And then I want to shout out to Michelle. We've got a lot of people commenting positively on your statement, which is the person down the hall is the expert, and sometimes we overlook them at that time. And then I do have a question that has come up, and I want to ask it now, if that's okay. Where lockdown happened March 2020, we had February 2021. What was your parent body? What was their insight, or what is the one thing that you are hearing from them in 2020, February 2020, and what are you hearing from them now, February 2021? Has that changed? So maybe Michelle, I know I jumped in there, I'm sorry, but maybe you can kick that off for us.
Okay. Yes, but I don't want Mohammed. Mohammed. I don't want Katab's comment that kids are driving instruction to get lost, and I think that does feed in to what parents are saying. In February 2020, they were all saying teachers are just amazing. Teachers are wonderful. Thank you so much. I don't know how you do this all day long. Now I think parents are watching, and they're getting much more savvy, and they are saying, what are you doing for our students now? So it has been difficult dealing with the teachers who are seeing parents wanting more for them and from them. And teachers are saying, I am doing as much as I possibly can. I am learning. I am trying to teach all these different ways with new things. And teachers are generally saying, I love a lot of the things I'm doing. And parents, I think, from what I'm hearing, are needing to know, so what is the benefit of these new things that you're doing with my kids? Now that my kids aren't always in classes with other kids, what am I getting out of these? Are you all hearing about the same thing or different?
Yeah, a lot. And
I would also say that I would also say that parents had more anxiety before, especially at the beginning, with a lot of unclarity. Things were really unclear, even when it comes to the regulation. What's going to happen? Is the school opening? Are we using this approach? How also we going to be using this specific approach? The training and the support that schools provided for these parents through different workshops, through different meetings, communication, regular communication, I think it reduced the anxiety in a dramatic way, and they're more comfortable now. They're more even satisfied with the learning that their kids they can see their kids are provided on daily basis, and I think also it opened up the relationship between the leaders, teachers, and parents. It made parents and teachers are more approachable to each others after this pandemic. We are more communicating on daily basis, on weekly basis. We're reflecting together. Surveys are piece of cakes these days. Whenever we find like there's an issue with the parents, okay guys, are we sending you a survey today? The next day we have like 100 parents are giving us their satisfaction or unsatisfaction due to this. So they also kind of like part of the decision in a way or another with the leaders. That helped a lot. Technology itself, it helped a lot from this perspective. I believe that they are more partners now. Before, no matter how much we used to say that your partnership in this learning process, but the technology, it made it even easier for us to communicate and to measure their satisfaction in a faster way, I would say.
I think the parents have become more receptive as well to change. And I think teachers and schools are receiving more appreciation for the work that they are doing. I think that is something, it's a celebration for the school that parents are actually involved and engaged in the students' education now. So I think that has changed quite a lot from what it was last Feb. So
And I believe they appreciated teachers' job more after
yeah.
spending these times with their kids at home. They're just like, even they're coming to us, and now we can see, guys, how you manage these kids in school. So I've heard that many times from many parents.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's dig into the parent thing a little bit more. What do you need from your parents? What is the most important thing? Like, if there's a group of parents listening right now to this, what do you need from them? Because their role has dramatically changed. Now all of a sudden I'm having to deal with calculus with my high school senior, and I have no idea what I'm doing with calculus. So what do you need from your parents?
Go ahead if you want.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, but first, I would like them to understand the dramatic changing that is occurring for, the situation that we're going through and the circumstances that we actually been through and we're going through. This is the first thing, that they understand the shift in the process of learning and the skills that their students are required to have. I mean, the method of chalk and talk is not on the table anymore concerning their kids. Their kids are learning in a different way that they've learned. That's the first thing that I would like the parents to share with me their kids' concerns, their for example, where they like, where they don't like inside their house. I mean, they are my eyes and ears most of the time to understand their kids better. That's why I need, like Rania just said, better communication with them, more communication. All of that is required from the parents, as well as to keep up with the teacher is not an easy job. I mean, waking in the morning, trying to get your kid watching the on Zoom or Microsoft or whatever that the teacher is using is not an easy job. So that's the main goal, I believe, that the teacher would require from the parents. Gori?
Yeah, right. I absolutely agree with what Kadab has just said, because I was just about to say that if the parents are communicating that to the teachers are anyways extending themselves beyond their boundaries, So I'm sure that they will keep one-on-one sessions. If you talk to a parent, I'm very sure that the teachers are going to have one-on-one separate sessions with your child and do extra sessions with the child, if there is a requirement. So I'm very sure that, because that has been happening in my child's school as well as where I'm working, where the teachers are so passionate about what they do that they will go beyond their timings as well, beyond working hours. I have sessions from 6 to 7 in the evening as well. So it's really hats off to what the teachers are already doing. So I'm very sure that that communication has to be very clear, very transparent. The parent has to say what my child is going through and if there's any support that can be given. I think that is definitely going to work.
I would love to add to that two more things. I would love the parents to do these days. Number one is patient. As a leader, I really expect from the parents to be patient, especially when it comes to all of these. We're living a paradigm shift these days, and a lot of things are happening in the sense of a trial and error. We're trying things together. It might be okay. We might fail. We might drop the ball at a certain point. So we are expecting this patience from our parents so we can develop and move through this journey together. The other thing is to maintain the balance, and this balance is very important for their children. The on and off screen time and managing their kids at home so they can have the proper well-being, the proper social time, not spending most of their time, especially these days, they're spending a lot of screen time in front of these screen learning. So at least playing, let's cherish the playing time after that, these hours, so these students can have more time to talk, to mingle, to play, so we can maintain the balance for the best of our students' mental and emotional health by the end of this pandemic, hopefully.
Yeah, it does become critically important that we're looking at the holistic health of our students, right? When my daughter or my son start to have a little meltdown about something they're doing on their virtual classes, I'm like, just shut it down for a little bit. take a break, take a breath, right? Walk the dog. Let's have a little break and we can come back to it. I think it's also really a bit of a call to action for parents and teachers and students around perseverance, which is very much a 21st century skill that's required of all of us, right? Teaching our kids that we can do hard because we're together. Right. I think there's so many things that you guys have talked about patience and having some empathy and kindness for one another during this time. And Kitab, you said something that's really, really important. And I'm pretty sure that I would like your class in school. And this is why, because you talk about passion, the passion that teachers bring every single day, and that they're working non-traditional hours and they're balancing your kids in the background and teaching and it really does take a village even in a virtual environment, right? Michelle, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that around parents?
Again, things as the parent of a teacher now, I would like parents to know that teachers are doing what we're all doing for the students. And it makes my heart hurt when I hear parents say, oh, that's just better for the teachers. It's not. Teachers are sitting in front of their Zooms or whatever they're using, Teams, all day long as well. And they don't get to take that dog break, or they don't get to get up. And the second group of parents that my heart goes out for is the parents of that, and I think it is a minority. In our research, though, it's about 25% of kids who do not do well on a virtual setting because they don't have the skills or the abilities to concentrate by themselves. And special ed teachers are having a very difficult time trying to get into the homes virtually of their students and be that watchful guide that they've always been. So in terms of what we're doing as teachers, know that we're doing it for your students and that we understand that it's not the best for all students. All students don't flow with the flexibility, and that we're trying, and that we're really trying to find those things for those kids. And I think, again, back to what Khatab has pointed out, student driven, that if you can find even something that the kids who don't like being away from other kids or aren't good at it do like to do, that's the curriculum change that we're all talking about. Student driven something to get them interested.
Yes.
Absolutely. So let's dig down into that 25% of kids that don't do well in the virtual environment. I have one student who does very well in the virtual environment, and I have one student who doesn't do well in the virtual environment. She's dying to be back to school. She's a senior. She wants community. She wants prom. She wants all the things that senior girls want, and she's really, really struggling with this. We've talked about a couple of things today that I know teachers have struggled with. And so maybe we can pull our heads together to give some best tips and practices. So for those 25% of kids, we talked about breakout rooms, right? How are we differentiating for that 25% of kids? Michelle, you talked about something really, really important. So when I was teaching, I taught high school, and I always had like a coffee pot in my room, and I had a lamp on my desk and chairs. And because I taught high school, kids would come in the morning and they would have coffee with me. I had coffee time, and kids would come in and we would talk. What did you do last night? How did this go? So I was able to make connections with my children, my students, in a very, very authentic way that created relevance for the work that I did. How are we doing that? How are we connecting with our students today so they know you care, they know you understand, they know that what you're teaching is relevant to their application? So let's talk about how we're differentiating for that 25%. Any tips or tricks or advice?
Well, basically, again, it takes us to the main objective of the lesson that you're trying to achieve at the beginning of the lesson. If you are going to differentiate, you will end up with let's say, four different success criteria for the same objective. So you end up with 4 different tasks based on your students' abilities. You know that you might have some students who are, as Michelle mentioned, self-directed learners who are capable to do the work or the more challenging work by themselves. These students might be in one of the breakout rooms working together. Me as a teacher, I need to support those 25% who are struggling and they need more instructional time where I provide more guidance. So maybe I will be in that room A, which is basically with these 5 students who needs more, with the more less complexity in the tasks. So basically whatever we do, we still can do it through these rooms virtually with our students. But again, I believe as we all can see, this approach is more successful for those students who have the self-actualization, who can take the ownership of their own learning. Especially, for instance, my high school girls these days, they would rather having the distance learning to remain as it is, and they don't want to come to school. They feel that, oh yeah, you'll be surprised, I have full classes who chose to have a DL, although we have the space and we have the capacity to provide the face-to-face learning, and they're doing very well. They're getting prepared for the university exams. They have their SATs. They believe that coming to school, it will like kind of waste their time, transportation, having these transition between periods and so on. So they can focus more now, get ready for their exams, and they're doing really well academically. However, on the other from the other side, when you look at the KG students, for instance, those lower grade students who needs that emotional and interaction, social, with a lower attention span, you can't keep them on the screen for a long period of time, and you need to keep changing your approaches. Some songs, videos, let's stand up, stretch a little bit, so you act as if they are really in your class, and in order to make the learning continue at a certain level.
I like that Rania said learning continue, because some of the most effective lessons that I've seen are actually large projects in which, I mean, give a mouse a pancake, do pancake making in your kitchen and have your kids watch, and then send them out into the world and say, so make your own pancakes, or find your own mouse, or give them some ideas. And Khattab mentioned they're going to come back with ideas. I think the larger projects, again, student directed and with minimal parent input, are also grabbing the attention of a lot of kids. I think that what we are learning as teachers is that we need to look at those breakout rooms and groups in as many different ways as we all knew. I mean, it's not just the high, medium, and low readers or the visual and kinesthetic learners. Now it's interest groups and what specific skills kids can bring to those groups.
Yes, and the part of the autonomy is very important here, giving the students the autonomy to choose. Labeling the students by telling them that you are with that group and you only can answer that question is definitely not the right choice. You give the different tasks and you give the students the autonomy to choose where do you want to start at. If you struggle here, you can jump from one room to another in order to maybe start with the less complex task. Then after you achieve it, you're welcome to join the more complex task in the next room, and so.
Yeah, I think student choice is incredibly important at this time because we're also building another skill there, right? Students understanding how I learn best and being proactive in that learning process. So, if you tell the students this is the outcome, this is where I need you at the end, you have a choice of 4 different ways of getting there. You choose which one you want. Here are the 4 breakout rooms. This group, we're going to meet at 10. This group, we're going to meet at 11. And you set that up so that students can engage in the community and the learning environment in the way they need to. I think that's amazing. And I had a teacher tell me recently that even in elementary levels, student choice in topics and the way they're doing something is hugely beneficial. So because I taught high school, of course, high school kids always want choice, right? You give them choice and they're really happy about that. Even middle school kids, it's much better if they think it's their idea, right?
Yes.
But elementary students actually have a lot of self-awareness about what works and what doesn't work. So what else can you think of? How are we differentiating in those breakout rooms?
The idea is, Amy, that also we need to change the reinforcement that we reinforce each student. I mean, the +5 marks or the idea of you're getting a certificate, or, I mean, those are great ideas, but the best reinforcement I found that it actually works were iTunes gift card or Google gift card. I mean, the kids just loved those things. I mean, they can use them on their mobile phones, and they actually been encouraged to do a lot of homework. I mean, I have a student who was like, I'm not into virtual, learning. I want to play on my mobile phone, and I was like, okay, do this, and you'll get, for example, PUBG packs or Fortnite, which he was fond of. And the idea is, I found that this student actually developed really fast in short amount of time. So again, here we are on the psychology of the student. We need to know the psychology of our students, what they like, what they don't like, and to focus on this in order to differentiate between the individuals inside the class, because we sometimes forget that the group is made of individuals. So if we focus on the individuals, eventually we will focus on the group.
So if we have teachers that are sitting on the live and listening to this and they're saying, yeah, I get that, but I've tried this and I've tried that and I've tried this and I've tried that, right? And that's not working. Do you think it's fair to say that the best advice we could give to them is to back up and build relationships and understand your students and make sure you know what your students like? So maybe it's a good idea to do an activity that you ask your students instead of, I think so many times we're all sure that people want to know about us, but to take the time to really invest in our students. And maybe instead of class tomorrow, you do something where you're going to bring your favorite beverage to class and you're going to talk about your 3 favorite things. And you as the teacher are gathering information. So go back to the drawing board. I can't tell you the number of times when I first started teaching that as a self-reflective practitioner, right, that I would look at a lesson and I would be like, that was the worst lesson. That was terrible, right? But failed that one, right? Try again tomorrow. And that we're really taking the opportunity to do that. And so when we talk about things like mindset and growth mindset and how we expand growth mindset, we model that for our students in our perseverance, right, and growth mindset, that we're willing to try that. What are you thinking about mindset and how are you working that into your classrooms? Gauri, what are you doing with your students to make sure that they're having that growth mindset? And how do you know they have it? What do you see?
It's basically the challenge that the teachers put for the students, So it depends on how the teacher is challenging the students in the classroom itself based on the responses that she gets from students. So I think design thinking is something that is being implemented as well. So where students are taking the initiative and students are given an opportunity to think beyond the regular thinking. So I think that is something that is working very well in our school as well. Where again, design thinking, innovation, STEM practices, all of these are actually problem solving, gamification. All of these are actually encouraging them to solve global issues. So basically, integrating SDG in the curriculum as well, something that I have done in my previous past, where you integrate the sustainable development goals inside the curriculum, and you start a lesson with a problem. So, like this is a global issue. So, how are we going to solve it? So, during the lesson, whether you teach them math or science, you are just going to start with a problem. So, it can be a global issue that you're starting off with. And during the process, it's a learning engineering. But during the process, is there a solution that you can come up with to solve the global issue? So something that is relatable, something that they can really relate to in real scenarios. I think that is something that is going to extend themselves and maybe have the growth mindset in those terms.
So what I have hear you saying is that when we're teaching students, it's really about giving them multiple opportunities to engage with the content in an abstract way. Because it's one thing if I know how to make pancakes here, but if I go to Dubai and they don't have the same thing that I have here in order to make that, how am I going to make that? Right? And so
absolutely.
I think it's interesting, and Michelle, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this. And I'm not sure we can dive into this, but in the United States, I'm not sure that our students are thinking about global context nearly as much as when I traveled to other places in the world. And I think it's kind of an interesting thing that I hear you talking about that. Michelle, do you see that similarly between here and international?
Boy, living in the UAE spoils you. The focus on STEM and innovation is really prevalent. Living in a place with huge glass buildings and everything that you would need to make pancakes, but I see the in the U.S. as much more on the standards, although. Although there's testing across the world and reaching the goals of the testing, whether it's to get into college or whether to be an outstanding school. I think here in the United States, what I'm noticing though is that the focus on testing is so completely separate from the focus on innovative things in the classroom, whereas in the Middle East and in Asia, what I'm seeing is that the innovation and the inspiration and the ability to embrace challenges and build your own student abilities, those are all built into the curriculum and thus the testing as well.
Yep, absolutely.
We used to call that the hidden curriculum.
Yes.
So the curriculum you teach is the content. The hidden curriculum is basically the values, the learning dispositions, all of these that skills that will make our students lifelong learners. Mm-hmm. So things like resilience, things like global thinking, things like what you just mentioned, digitally friendly person, other core values that we are teaching beside the curriculum. We also need to focus on these as teachers and educators. And role modeling here is very important because we teach by implementing this. While we don't maybe intentionally going to put this as an objective on our board the way we do with the content, but we teach it to our students through our communication, a daily interaction, where they're gonna learn these beautiful skills and they're gonna flourish it by time.
Yep, absolutely. So we're coming to the end, and I feel like we could have a dialogue around this for forever, right? There's so many topics, and we've only covered the surface at this point. But I want to make sure that those of us that are joining us live what is one piece of practical advice that you want to give to somebody starting out in this process? What do we want to leave our audience with today? So we'll start wherever, whoever wants to start, jump in.
I think, okay. It's okay.
All right. Maria Montessori said, let the children lead their learning. And I think this is a great place for that to happen.
Absolutely.
I think trust and patience, especially in this pandemic, I think that is very important that everyone, whether educators, leaders, parents, teachers, students, everyone, we just need to be calm and take care of our health and well-being, emotional, social, which is very, very important. And then everything comes, you know. I feel that is very important to just keep calm and be patient and just trust the educators and everyone. That's all.
I would say personally resilience and flexibility. Let's be resilient. Let's be flexible. It's a new era we're living together. There are going to be challenges, but the more we live these challenges, the more we're learning. And this is by itself a great learning opportunity. I feel very blessed, to be honest, living this this pandemic and living this paradigm shift phase that we are currently living together, because it added to me as a leader, as an educator. We learned a lot from each other as well by interacting and communicating on daily basis. So resilience and flexibility definitely are very important in order to continue and moving to the next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say again, be the flow, be the change that you want to see in the world. I mean, that's the job of the teacher to create. I mean, I've graduated from engineering college, and I shifted my career to teaching. And a lot of students would tell me, "Well, why don't you just go build a building instead?" It was like building a human being is much better than building a normal house or building a building. Therefore, to all of the teachers who are hearing us, you're doing an amazing job. That actually you're building a human being. You're building the mind of a human being. Therefore, it's your job to make sure that this building will be just awesome and will change the world.
Well, I have to tell you all that I'm incredibly grateful for you taking time with us today. If nobody has told you thank you for all that you're doing to ensure that our students are healthy and holistically well-rounded. And, you know, this too, like many other times in history, not only will we, you know, persevere, but we will thrive through this just like we have in every other way because of educators like you. So thank you everybody who's joining us here today. Thank you, Mohammed, for facilitating and helping us make sure that we are live. And friends, I hope I see all of you as we are on this journey together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.